Hi guys, I'm Sonal and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to just sit down and discuss with you guys my keto journey. So I have a lot of questions that come up under my video saying that do you still do keto and what are the benefits that you've got in the long run? Right now I'm not on keto. So I just came back from a vacation to Goa, and this is the time of the year when it had the most beautiful weather, it has the most beautiful beaches and food, and it is much more affordable than Hawaii. So we go to Goa every year. So anyway, I have been off my diet and off the low carb diet, but I do follow certain rules even when I am on my vacations. So I try to do intermittent fasting regularly. So skip breakfast and then I will go for a heavy meal for lunch and then maybe a light meal for the evening dinner. So I could skip dinner, but my kids want to eat. My son is very enthusiastic about trying out different cuisines and different foods and different restaurants. So we do land up going, and if I'm there, I don't want to stop myself, but we just try to make good choices, healthier choices. Basically, I'm at a point where I eat keto on most days, but I'm not in ketosis because I have extended the number of carbs that I eat to a lot more. For example, I think I eat around 70 to 100 grams of carbs, and sometimes it doesn't keep you in ketosis. I don't measure my ketones, so I don't have a ketone meter. I live in India. It's not an affordable thing to have. I do have a continuous glucose monitoring device, which is a lifesaver. So if you're a diabetic, you should get it at least a couple of times, where you get an idea of how your sugars are working, how your particular body is working. This gives you a continuous graph of where your sugars have been even when you were asleep. So did it dip too low? Did it go too high? Do you get the dawn phenomenon when your sugar starts rising too high? I was doing keto for at least 3 to 4 years quite seriously, and I saw my blood sugars come under control simply because if you don't eat carbs, your sugars are normally under control, which is a normal thing, people know. And you will improve your metabolic syndrome, which is what I expected. But I did see eventually that even after doing it so diligently for 4 to 5 years, my fasting glucose wasn't coming down without medication. And so that's when I started looking into dawn phenomenon and how to get it down, and there was no other way other than with metformin, and for whatever reason that wasn't happening for me even with metformin. Now that kind of discouraged me, demotivated me, and also the other thing I think all of you see is what is demotivating to some of us, maybe not to all of us, is when people talk about their journeys of how they start a diet, like maybe a ketogenic diet or vegan diet, and they talk as if all of their health issues got completely resolved. And I have seen that that did not really happen with me, and that kind of demotivates you. Now there are two ways to take demotivation. You just give up and sort of like start eating whatever you want, or observe what did not work for you while it was working for others. Or even to actually realize that people may not be sharing the most frank and realistic experiences, because when you are sharing something, it's easier to say that this is great or it's completely a fraud or a useless thing. When you talk in the gray area, it's not as interesting to people. And when you're on YouTube, you want to say something interesting. I'm going to take the risk of saying something absolutely basic, and that is that keto did not resolve all of my problems. It definitely is a great diet because it tells you what are the good fats, what are the good foods to eat. It talks about grain-free and gluten-free, which I completely believe in. It talks about eliminating a lot of milk. You're allowed to eat cheese, and people eat a lot of cheese. Now that I don't agree with. So there are certain things in keto which have a lot of merit, and there are certain things that I don't agree with. And the things that I realized that I don't agree with, I did away with. Another thing that I did away with in my diet is a high fat diet, because it just did not make sense to me. If I'm trying to lose weight, I obviously have some extra weight or some extra fat in my body already. So eating more of that exact thing does not make sense to me, and I stopped doing that. I do understand that eating a high fat diet is important because it keeps you satiated, but you want to be making ketones not from the fat that you're eating. You want to make it from the fat that you have stored. Isn't that the point of the whole diet? So that's another change I have made. I have made a lot of changes in my ketogenic approach, and I'm pretty happy with it because I have come to a point where I get to eat the foods that I want to a certain extent at least. So I do sometimes eat a little bit of rice. So there's a certain way that I cook my rice in, where it develops more of the resistant starch and it doesn't spike your sugar as much. It lowers the glycemic index of the food. So I have learned all of these tips and tricks from some of the best or my favorite doctors. So I follow Dr. Gundry, who is a cardiologist, but he talks about nutrition as an approach to curing diseases. And I always follow those kind of doctors. And of course, those are the ones, that are on the internet. And they're talking about these topics because all of the others are busy prescribing drugs to patients. And I don't blame them because those are also the ones who keep us healthy and alive in adverse situations. So everybody has a place in this world, including every kind of healthy, unhealthy, fat and thin person. So coming back to the doctors that I follow Dr. Gundry, I follow Dr. Sinclaire, who is the leading researcher in longevity. Then I follow Dr. Walter Longo because he does a lot of research on fasting and fasting mimicking diets. Isn't that great? I mean, you could eat and still get the benefits of fasting. Then there is Dr. Jason Fung, who talks about fasting and keto approaches. What I loved about Dr. Gundry is that in his current book, The Keto Code, he talks about how you can get the benefits of keto without actually being in ketosis. And all of these people, they talk about the blue zones. Blue zones are the areas or the regions in which people have been known to live the longest. So the proportion of the centenarians in that area is much higher than anywhere else, and most people will live beyond 90. So people have been researching these areas and these people for a long time, and there is value in that information. And what is important is that they don't really eat a high fat and a high protein diet. They eat good fats, enough of good fats, and they eat carbs. A lot of them are actually eating a lot of carbs. The only difference is that they are eating healthy carbs, and what we eat in this modern world as carbs is a lot of times sugars and grains. So those are not the carbs that you want to eat. So I have been reading all of this and I've incorporated as much as I can in my diet. I also wanted to tell you guys that I have designed a course recently, which is a 8-class live course, online course. And in that, I'm going to talk about all of these hacks and tricks that I have learned from these doctors and researchers, and I have tried them on myself. You know, I've been a diabetic for close to 30 years. So I've almost tried every diet and every tip that a nutritionist or a regular doctor has been giving, and I've seen how they fail miserably. Especially in India, if you go to a dietitian, and no matter what you are, whether you are a diabetic or not, they will tell you eat some rotis and a little bit of rice and dal and vegetables and what else? Yeah, and yogurt. And you know, yogurt is great and vegetables are great and dal is also good for you. But come on, not rice and rotis. Because if a person like me would be eating all of this, I would have to take a lot of insulin. So I want to tell you guys that following these cookie cutter kind of instructions from these nutritionists who don't really think about what you are is not the right approach. You know, it's best to sort of make a diet for yourself depending on what your tastes are and also depending on what your body is like. So if you're highly insulin resistant, you don't want to eat as many carbs. Or if you are tolerating carbs, then you could eat. Even if you're trying to just keep yourself healthy and in good metabolic health, this is something you want to do. And I want to talk to you about this because more and more people are becoming diabetic. So it's very important that you guys catch this before it's too late. And it's never going to be late. You can definitely reverse it. But why would you want to wait? So, you know, there are certain tests that you can do today to know where you stand on metabolic health, and what you can do for it is something that I'm going to answer in my course. So you should join the course. Also, I have a 10% discount if you put the code SONAL, 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 SONAL. And it's a very, very cheap course. It's about like I think $12.99 or $9.99. So for 8 classes, it is really cheap. Go check out the course. There's a link in the description, and you can check out all the topics that I'm going to cover in that. And I'm going to give you really practical solutions to a lot of these questions in your mind. If you're live with me in the session, you can even ask me questions. And I'm also going to have sort of a cook along where I tell you the ingredients beforehand. You can bring them, and then we can probably cook some of my flatbread recipes together. I'm going to give you a lot of options in that, which will help you manage your diet better, because I really believe that you need to get rid of grains. And I'm also going to talk about why you should get rid of grains, but if you want to eat moderately, you can, and how to incorporate them in recipes and make these wonderful recipes that you can have on a daily basis. You can make a lot of this beforehand and store it in the refrigerator and then eat it later. So I really genuinely feel you guys should all register for this course. I hope to see you guys there. And it's time for me to go back on my 5-day Walter Longo fasting mimicking diet. I am hoping I'm going to be able to do that, because after gorging on so much wonderful food, sometimes it gets really tough to suddenly get into a diet. I mean, people will say these things that, I come back and I do that. And I used to be on a vacation, eat what I wanted, come back and go on a diet. But these days, sometimes it becomes more and more challenging, because your body changes and your hormones change and you change, your mind changes, and change is a good thing. So as your body changes, change your ways. Anyways, I was just blabbering. So mainly, I hope to see you guys on my course. Bye. Thanks for watching.